Okay. Okay, good afternoon. This is a meeting of the HRM Active Transportation Advisory Committee on May 16th. Time is 4:35. My name is Hugh Millward. I'll be chairing the meeting. And I'll call the meeting to order. And first we'll read the land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. I'll proceed now to the roll call. This is so we can see who's here, see and hear who is here. So please make sure your audio and video are on. So as I said, my name is Hugh Millward. The vice chair is Douglas Wetmore. Douglas?
Present, Hugh. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Patty Cottle is on the phone and stuck in traffic. You're there,
yep.
Patty? Yep. Thank you.
Yep. I'm here and I can hear you. Thank you.
Very good. Peter Zimmer?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Peter. Holly Woodill?
President accounted for.
Okay. Paul Young? I don't think Paul has joined us yet. All right. Annika Ropel?
Yep, I'm here, present.
Okay, thank you, Annika. Milena Casanavicius?
Here, present.
Thank you. Miles McCormick?
Present, Hugh.
Thank you. Brittany McLean? Okay, so Brittany's not joined us either. Elizabeth Pugh?
I am here, and I think Annika said Brittany was trying to get here. She's stuck in traffic.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Another one.
My
All
understanding, there's 2 accidents on both bridges.
Oh, really? Uh-huh. Okay.
And the finagle out in Sackville.
Okay. Okay, and there were no regrets, so hopefully those 2 folks will join us. And with staff members, normally we would be joined by David McIsaac, Manager of Active Transportation. He's just let me know that he's going to be late. But Mark Nina, is it, will be listening in for him. Are you there, Mark? No? Okay.
No, it's not yet, but you'll join us soon.
Okay. And Lucas Pitts will be joining us. Are you here, Lucas?
Hi, no, this is Roddy McIntyre. Lucas is a bit behind. He may be trying to join once we're in progress, but I'm not quite sure if he'll make it.
Okay, let's hope so. Let's hope they'll make it. And our legislative assistant today is Olawumi Odienka Apantaku. And you're here. So let's move on. Approval of minutes circulated for April 18th. The draft minutes were circulated. Were there any errors or omissions noted? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes as circulated.
I'll move that for you, Hugh. It's Holly.
Thank you, Holly. And we need a seconder, please.
I'll
Pauletta?
second.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of the minutes as circulated, approving the minutes as circulated, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay or raise your hand. Okay, that passes unanimously. So the minutes are approved as circulated. Item 3 is approval of the order of business and of any additions or deletions. So, Olawumi, were there any additions or deletions from the clerk's office?
No additions for deletions received from the clerk's office.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Any
No.
additions or deletions received from the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. And do any of the committee members have items to add? No? Okay. Then I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda as circulated. I need a mover and a seconder.
I
Milena
do,
moves.
Hugh.
So Miles moved that, and do I have a seconder?
Milena.
Milena. Okay, thank you. So the motion is that the agenda be approved as presented, circulated, and those in favor, please say aye
Aye.
or raise your hand. And any opposed, please say nay or raise your hand. No one opposed, so that that passes, and the agenda is approved. Item 4, business arising out of the minutes. There is none. And item 5, call for declaration of conflict of interests. If any of you feel that you have a conflict of interest regarding today's agenda, this is the time to declare it, please. Okay, no conflicts of interest and no deferred business. So we'll move on to correspondence. Again, Olawumi, has there been any correspondence received by the clerk's office?
Correspondence received by the clerk's office.
Okay. And petitions, again, any petitions received?
No petitions received by the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. Information items brought forward, there are none. So that gets us through fairly rapidly to item 9.1.1, a review of the road safety strategy, the way forward. So Lucas Pitts is supposed to be providing that, but if he's not here.
So I'm here. I can run through the presentation for
Okay.
Lucas. Like I
Okay,
said,
yes, please.
he may be able to he may log on while we're in progress, but I'm not quite sure. So I'm here to run through our slides from TSC for him.
Okay, that's appreciated, Roddy. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me just see. I'm more of a Teams user than a Zoom user, so you'll have to bear with me while I try to get the proper screen shared here.
Okay. Does Olawumi have your presentation? Because she can show it as well.
That I'm not sure if she has it or not.
I do. I can try from
Okay.
this end.
Okay, so if it's easier for you to share it, Olawumi, then that's fine, and I can just ask for the slides to be advanced as we go through if that works better.
Go.
Okay.
So I'm ready to go, Olawumi, if you just want to get the oh, perfect.
Okay.
All right, so I'll introduce myself just very quickly. My name's Roddy McIntyre. I'm manager of the Traffic Services and Road Safety Group with HRM Traffic Management, and I'm here on behalf of Lucas Pitts to give this quick overview of our the next iteration of our road safety strategy. And this is the same presentation that was provided at Transportation Standing Committee a couple weeks ago. Next slide, please. So the road safety in HRM, this first slide is just to display the statistics that we had through the first 5 years, beginning in 2018, showing the trend as generally trending downward. Obviously, you can see with the large dip in 2020 corresponds with the lockdowns and all the issues with the COVID pandemic, and then obviously the rebound as the chart shows. our experience with an HRM with this drop and then kind of the rebound, this is pretty much what's been experienced through many jurisdictions across the country and several other countries around the world with the experience with the pandemic and their road safety challenges and what's happening with their experiences with road safety. So over the course of the original framework, we were showing with the fatal and injury collisions per 100,000, we're trending downward. I know we have had some increases in certain aspects, but overall the trend is showing a downward trend. Next slide, please. So the new road safety strategy that we're bringing in is more of a long-term guiding document. Helps establish our vision and goal and principles that we want to apply, not just within our group, but across the organization, and identifies key priority areas. And with this one, we've got some key performance indicators that we're going to be that will be identified later in the presentation. Unlike the original document, the original road safety framework, this one is intended to be long-term, no set end date, because this is intended to help us guide our work through evidence-based decision making and applying technologies and new strategies as they come up, so that we're not fixed into one or two or three or whatever approaches. This is more of a guiding document to operationalize our road safety strategy. Next slide, please. So with the new strategy, our vision, this aligns with Vision Zero and is to achieve zero fatalities and serious injuries for all road users in the Halifax Region Municipality by 2038. And the goal for this operationalized strategy is to maintain a downward trend in the rate of fatal and serious injury collisions per 100,000 residents. So what we want to do is we want to maintain that continuous downward trend. Next slide, please. So some of the guiding principles, and these are included within the Vision Zero and kind of an internationally accepted safe systems approach. And when you look at the wheel, it's here on the slide. So all of these aspects, these 6 aspects, are kind of framed into how we want to approach this. So it involves safe land use planning, safe speeds, safe road users, safe vehicles, safe road design, and post-crash care. Some of these are not items that we can necessarily control directly within the municipality, but this is what we want to move along with as far as bringing in our partners on the Road Safety Steering Committee to ensure that we've got partners engaged who can actually affect change in some of these areas. Next slide, please. So within the new strategy, we've got 4 priority areas that are identified for the program, and these are where we want to focus our efforts. And the first is on intersections, second, vulnerable road users, safe schools, and data management. As I indicated in one of the previous slides, we want to make sure that we're using an evidence-based approach, helping to apply, countermeasures and programs where the data is telling us they're most needed. And that's how we want to try to drive forward with this new strategy. Next slide, please. So our key performance indicators that we're going to be moving forward with the new strategy, and this is what I alluded to earlier on. So one is the number of fatal collisions, serious injury collisions, and fatal and serious injury collisions per capita. The reason we're using the per capita approach is it allows us to compare our experience to other jurisdictions. Using a per capita basis provides an apples to apples comparison, so we can gauge our progress. That's not to say we're not going to have total numbers. We certainly will have your basically just for lack of a better term, the raw numbers, but this allows us to compare and see if our program is kind of keeping pace with others, whether we're achieving similar results. The next, we'll also have total number of fatal and serious injury collisions by mode and jurisdiction. So that would be whether or not it's on a provincial road with an HRM or HRM controlled road. And that would be a total number. Those wouldn't necessarily be per capita numbers. And then as we go through, they're just additional metrics that we want to be able to track with this new strategy. So number of fatalities or serious injuries, number of fatalities and all injuries, percentage of fatal and serious injury collisions that are within identified vulnerable communities. And next slide, please. Percentage of vehicles complying with speed limit as a sample of major collector and arterial roadways. So this is where we would try to get out there and get that data collection to see what sort of speed compliance we're getting on some of those higher order roads. And that these are one of the items that would help us feed into working with police and enforcement. We look at changes in the 85th percentile speed on traffic calm streets by subregion. So this is more of the follow-up data for those areas where we had done traffic calming to see whether we actually, whether we're achieving speed reductions there. And just for explanation, the 85th percentile speed, that's the speed at or below which 85% of the vehicles on the road are traveling. And then some of the other KPIs we get into more of the softer assessments, kind of user perception of safety within a municipality and individual and broken down by individual polling distance. So this is to try to gauge whether or not the measures and the programs we're putting in place are people actually feeling like they're making a difference. We'd also be looking at number of people exposed to educational and online material. So are we reaching the public with some of these educational and information programs? And then again, this is another one that we want to kind of work with our colleagues in police, and that's to get an idea and track the number of summary offense tickets issued by our policing partners within HRM to do with some of these road safety issues that we've been dealing with. Next slide, please. So this is just to highlight kind of where we've been since we started with the focus with the road safety program and what council has been doing as far as support along the way. So as you can see, starting back in 2019, 2020, a little under 1.2 million was our kind of the budget we were working with, and over the years you can see it's increased fairly significantly. Now to current budget year, we're implementing with 5.5 million. And we would be looking, depending on future budgets, we would be looking for continued support from council. Next slide, please. And that would actually be the end of the slides. Well, quick and simple, just to get a high-level overview of the intent behind the new program, and I believe as part of the package that was sent around, I think the document is also there. Am I correct in that, Oluwumi?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Roddy. We will go through a speaking list that I have in front of me here. And initially, everyone is allowed 5 minutes for their comments, and then we can go through to a second round and have a second round of comments after that. So I'll call on people in the list. First, Miles McCormick, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions, but I'm definitely interested in the safe school aspect that's starting to become a focus in the community, and also in the intersections. One of my things that I would like to see is a standard, because I find quite often at intersections, especially for the pedestrians, it's never always the same way. So if it was like a uniform system, I think for people that are walking, biking, and also people that are just driving cars, it might be of use. But rather than take up time on that, I'm very much interested and will monitor closely on safe schools. Thank you very much for your work.
Okay, thank you, Miles. Brittany McLean? Oh, I guess Brittany didn't join us yet, did she? Okay, let's move on. Hopefully Brittany will be joining. Holly Woodill.
I have questions of how the statistics were with the perceived safe driving, but that's okay. It just seems like everybody's getting worse, not better, in my mind.
So
But that's all my comment is.
no, I just wondered, did you want to know how those perceived soft measures are measured?
It would be interesting to see how it was measured, but if it was available, yeah.
So that's one of our new KPIs. That's what we'll be moving forward with. And we've actually seen a similar question in some of the previous HRM, the general surveys that HRM puts out. A lot of times the citizen surveys will ask questions around, you know, do you feel your neighborhood, or do you feel your neighborhood streets are safe? Like those questions like that, because sometimes we'll get feedback through those, where we could get feedback through those about, you know, we understand you may be doing A, but we don't feel that provides safety in what maybe an aspect that we hadn't thought about, or again, it's to gauge whether or not the work we're doing in certain areas is achieving kind of that goal of people feeling safe in their neighborhood. And sometimes, unfortunately, we can do just about everything, and it could be an occurrence that a resident may have that does make them feel unsafe, and we like to know what that is. So if we get feedback that is basically, shows a very low feeling of safety in a neighborhood when we've done, any number of treatments for the roadway, that's, that would give us a cue to reach out, dig a little deeper, and find out what is maybe behind that feeling that things are unsafe.
Oh, and just in my case, outside the house, you put in speed bumps for the school, and instead of slowing down, certain drivers are launching themselves off them to getting air off the speed bumps. So no, it doesn't feel safer for us or the kids that may still be around after school.
Yeah, and that would kind of speak to one of those other KPIs that I noted about doing the follow-up speed assessments in areas where traffic calming has gone in. So we do have before data that's always collected before traffic calming measures go in. But we would then be able to circle back, pick up some speed data to see whether or not they're actually impacting driver behavior.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Paul Young, I don't think Paul's joined us yet, correct? So we'll move on. Annika Ropel.
Yeah, hi. I generally love that we've removed towards vision and we're actually going for vision 0. That's always great to hear. And kind of some of those metrics are nice to see. I'm wondering about, there's been whispers, rumors that HRM is working on doing a red light and speed radar pilot. I know that we're waiting on the province for some of those logistics, but someone at some point had told me that HRM apparently was going to move forward. So I was wondering about how that tech and a potential pilot on that might factor into this. And then also what kind of considerations are being made for snow clearing and slips and falls in the winter in terms of injuries?
Okay, so I can speak to the photo radar piece, and I don't think it's any secret. I mean, Lucas has always been out front with this, and so have I. That we continue to press the province to get the ability to do this. This is one of those measures that would actually go a long way to helping with some of our higher order roadways. I mean, we certainly recognize that, because obviously police can't be everywhere. There's only certain engineering things we can do on those roadways without creating havoc. So no, we are pursuing continuously the ability to try to get some sort of a pilot or get the legislation or the systems in place that'll allow us to move forward with that. As far as the snow clearing, that's a maintenance, that's a winter maintenance item. That's not, although yes, it's a safety thing, but it's not tied to the road safety strategy. If there are issues with winter maintenance standards, that should be submitted in through, whether it's through your councillor or to our infrastructure maintenance and operations department who looks after the winter maintenance. If it's felt that snow and ice control is deficient or standards aren't being met, then that certainly should be shared in through that department. That wouldn't really fall under the road safety strategy per se.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Councillor Cottle, do you have comments?
Hi, Hugh. Thanks. I'm just going to wait for. Has everyone else made their comments?
No.
No. Okay, I'll wait to the end because I heard this and I deferred it to so that this committee could have a say on it. So I'll just wait and hear what everyone has to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Peter Zimmer.
Okay, hi. Yes, I'm here on behalf of the Halifax Cycling Coalition. I'm their representative here at ATAC. I'm also on the Road Safety External Stakeholders Committee. And I've been digging into the documents behind your presentation, and I've got a lot of questions. So I guess first principles, cycling without fear on all of our streets and at all times of the year as a human right is what I'm pitching for. And that means that we need data from the city about what are the accidents that involve bikes and other low mass, low velocity wheeled objects that people travel around the city on, otherwise called micromobility. Reflecting on that whole Road Strategy 2004, I was kind of struck by its lack of ambition of saying, oh, well, we're just going to keep in our present stream of doing things and we'll measure some data, but we're not going to really look at any challenging ideas or challenge the city, the people in the city. And there were some things I thought were points about road safety that really weren't addressed at all in the larger document. Essentially, that larger document seems to have recycled a lot of stuff that was in the 2018 Strategic Road Safety Plan, which certainly had a lot more depth to it. The rewarming of those goals and objectives and projects didn't really address some of the issues that concern HCC and the other NGOs involved in the Road Safety's External Stakeholder Committee. You're going to get a lot of paper from some of my colleagues. I went through the Safe Systems wheel and I read it and I said, how are each of these features in terms of presenting us with a plan to make our roads safer, to make our roads feel safer? And what do they contribute to that? And frankly, the post-crash care, I don't think belongs in that wheel. That's only coming into play after you've had a collision and somebody's been injured. And presumably by what I've seen here, you're only really concerned with serious injury, but I haven't yet seen a definition of what constitutes serious injury. Somebody must have one someplace. I've seen some references that from the public health perspective, their numbers of people who are injured in bike collisions and pedestrian collisions don't jibe with the police reports. I saw something that's basically said they have 3 times as many vulnerable road users injured come through the ERs and their treatment tracking than the police reports do. I know I was in a minor road accident, December in 2022. Yeah, December 2022. I was knocked to the pavement, banged my head a bit. Turned out I had a broken collarbone. Well, that accident is reported on the grid, and there's no injury recorded. I'm wondering about what's that business. In discussion with some people, we've had things about, what about fear? I know a number of people who say they're concerned about the near misses, about the accidents that might have happened to them. They're afraid of being hit by a car. And again, you have that doesn't appear anywhere in your documentation. And I would like to see a safe road standards that says we are going to do everything to figure out how to improve our whole, our commons, our mobility commons, all the roads and pathways and trails and, that make up surfaces people drive on, ride on, walk on. And we're going to look and evaluate our strategies and our goals around what can we do that will make the biggest difference for the long term. Not just the body counts, but really making the roads safer. Make it comfortable for me, who's 81, to ride my bicycle on any street in the city and feel safer than I do now. I live on Willow Street, sort of a quiet middle peninsula street, except I see cars going up the 50-kilometer-an-hour speed zone here at 60 or 65 frequently. I have never seen a police car on this street. I don't know if they have ever issued any traffic tickets on this street. And I want a system that says, you got to protect my street, and you got to protect the rural streets in all of the rural part, from Ecum-Secum down to Hubbard's, as well as the metropolitan area. And you've got to find some strategies that will work on making changes for there. Now, I do know of one strategy, and I've made a little scenario about this so that I guess I'd like to read. Here's how I envision reporting from 2030 on Halifax's newly safer roads. Okay, it's Labor Day 2030, a month after the Natal Day 2030, when we launched our big change affecting the entire HRM mobility commons from Ecum-Secum to Hubbard's in rural, suburban, and urban areas, in greenfield and brownfield new developments, and in our historic neighborhoods. All users of all of our mobility commons, which consist of streets, roadways, highways, bike lanes, multi-user pathways, trails, alleyways, parking lots, sidewalks, are safer now and beginning to feel safer as people walk, cycle, and drive about our physically unchanged streets. We made this big change, years sooner than anyone in 2024 thought was possible, and certainly 8 full years before the old strategy's 2038 end date. We've deployed a slow all speed limits program that reduced all speed limits in HRM by 20%. And we've taken full advantage of modern automated traffic enforcement technologies and related best practices from around the world. We're really pleased that we succeeded in convincing the province of Nova Scotia and other Nova Scotia municipalities to join this. We've improved the environment, and we're seeing the early benefits from this. This is in 2030. From the slow speeds, we've an improved environment. There are 20% fewer emissions of greenhouse gases and less toxic road dust to breathe. People are spending less at the gas pumps because they're driving more slowly while making all of their usual trips. There are fewer, less damaging collisions, easing the demand on people and budgets for first responders and emergency rooms and other health services. I want to make a radical change. I want to make it soon. I want to make it so it serves everybody, no matter where they live in Halifax. It's not just crisis point. I would observe that localized upgrades to a street a couple blocks away doesn't make anyone elsewhere feel any safer about the streets. Fixing a dangerous intersection may reduce the body count at that location for years to come, but that won't change bad habits of drivers. Dropping the speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour in scattered patchworks of residential neighborhoods does not change expectations or habits of drivers outside of those neighborhoods.
Excuse me, Peter, you've already had 11 minutes and
okay,
which is well over your time. Were you coming to a conclusion there?
Essentially, you know, I will send the document through and I'll circulate it to everybody. But, you know, I don't think the overall road safety strategy is satisfactory.
Okay. I don't know if Roddy wants to respond, but because I wasn't sure actually what you were specifying that Roddy should do, but would you like to respond, Roddy?
No, I don't know really what I would respond to.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. That's fine. All right. So Douglas Wetmore, let's move to you.
All right, I've got a handful of thoughts here. I'll try and just spew them out and hopefully something makes sense out of it. I'll start with the guiding principles. Truthfully, looking at this plan, I'm holding my breath for a lot of it because I feel like a lot of it is just going to come down to the same argument we've heard, which is what can HRM reasonably do and what is the province's responsibility, which I'm pretty tired of hearing that argument, but when it comes to things like safe speed limits, safe vehicles, safe road design, I feel like a lot of that is outside of HRM's control, is it not? Like thinking speed limits, we've already had a lot of back and forth with the province on what can we actually do in terms of lowering speed limits. Road design, I know there's guidelines we have to follow, especially thinking intersections as a priority area. I know there were going back to it, there's conversations on getting radars in, banning rights on reds. These are all realistically really simple things that we should be talking about already, but I feel like the conversation has come and gone and the conversation has ended at we need permission from the province. Even thinking about safe vehicles, this is something that has bothered me for many years, so I'm going to vent about it real quick. I would walk home along Robie Street, center of the peninsula, and on my way home, I would pass by a car dealership with rows of trucks whose hoods are about the height of my own head, 5'9". And I have to ask myself, why are all of these trucks on display in a city designed in a way to cause harm to pedestrians should a collision ever happen? And why are we allowing these to be sold right here in the center of the city, ignoring the fact that that space can probably be used for housing? But I feel like these conversations, when we talk about safe vehicles, we haven't even scratched the surface. So like, yeah, this is great on paper, but I'd like to see more about what's actually going to happen and how we're going to make it happen. And most importantly, how we're going to get permission from the province to collaborate on making these happen. I feel like there's not much else to be said on vulnerable road users, safe schools, data management. I feel like everyone else has touched on that. If there is one thing that I would like to hear on is some of the KPIs. As a marketing student, I'm very concerned about KPI number 10, number of summary offense tickets issued by HRP. I feel like that number could very easily be swayed by things outside of how safe roads actually are. Thinking about where are police being positioned, how many police are on the road, what are their specific guidelines for getting tickets out. That number to me does not reflect how safe roads actually are. That number seems extremely arbitrary, and I would like to see that KPI reconsidered to something maybe a little bit more meaningful or disregarded. That was a lot of things that were just spewed out. I'll leave it there for now. If there's anything you want to comment on that, Roddy.
Okay, sure. So as far as the summary offense tickets, that was included because we always get asked about that. That's something we always get asked about, so we wanted to make sure it was in there, for that purpose. Some of the items you touched on before, yeah, certainly we can't control vehicle design, right? We get that. But just to back up a little bit, so the guiding principles, these are not ones that we had created. This is part of kind of an internationally accepted kind of safe systems approach, that a lot of Vision Zero jurisdictions and countries use. So these are items that are kind of standardized, and there are documents out there with a lot of the definitions in them. But some of the items you did mention, things like, right turn on red, no right turn on red. We don't need province's permission to do that. We can do that. We do that. And we're actually, Milena, we're in the process of assessing an intersection right now to restrict right turns on red. We just need to find the right spot for the signs so that drivers can see them and pedestrians don't hit their heads on them. So urban areas, unfortunately, space is tight, so we want to make sure we get them in there. So these are things we certainly do. Intersection design, again, that's up to us. Yes, there are nationally and internationally accepted engineering guidelines that we need to follow, but we don't need the province's permission to redesign an intersection, and we are doing that. The radar, yes, absolutely. That's, like I said earlier, we're still pressing the province. We recognize that's an important tool, and we want to get that in place. Speed limits, that's another thing. We are still pressing the province on that to make changes to the Motor Vehicle Act, or their new legislation that comes in, the Traffic Safety Act, that basically takes the province out of the picture and provides municipalities and other towns and jurisdictions their own autonomy with setting their own speed limits. So we're pressing on that as well. We would much rather be able to go in and provide, whether it's through bylaw or whatever authority they give us, to do blanket speed reduction, rather than having to post a ton of signs on streets to lower the speed limit. Because the current legislation, basically, the signs, if there's no posted sign, then automatically it's 50. So in order for us to actually get those 40-kilometer-per-hour speed limits in, we actually have to put a sign in every street. We'd rather not do that. It's labor intensive. It's a waste of materials. So we are pressing the province to change legislation to give municipal jurisdictions autonomy in posting speed limits. And some of the other items about, and somebody mentioned before, like near misses and things like that we do have another report coming through to address with action plans for the top 10 most frequent collision intersections. And a lot of those were actually identified not just through the actual numbers. We've actually had video analytics done on those to actually pull up and identify near misses. So some of that, and then as we go forward, we will be using those tools in order to identify locations where there's potential. We're not going to wait until the collision numbers get high. If we apply the video analytics, it shows that there's high potential at these locations. We can go in and say, all right, this is showing a lot of, as you like to call them, near misses for left turns. We can go in and try to implement strategies to address that before it happens. So that's all part of this new strategy, is to operationalize what we do. So our staff will be doing, ongoing assessments, in-service safety audits, and taking advantage of some of these other tools to allow us to try to get ahead of this as much as we can. That being said, you need to understand from our group, the engineering is only one part of it, and we can only do so much with engineering. If somebody is choosing to ignore a sign, ignore a signal, that comes down to relying on our partners in enforcement, our partners in education, to make sure drivers are aware of the rules, following the rules, and actually that all road users are aware of the rules and following the rules.
Douglas, you have your hand up. Did you have a rejoinder?
Yes, I'll come back. We can continue through the speaker list, and I'll take another 3 minutes after.
Okay, fine. So, Milena Kasandavicius.
Thank you. Hi, Roddy. Thank you. Just quickly before I start, and I'll make a few points and comments, and then come back on a second round like Douglas as well. Douglas covered a lot of what I wanted to say. I'll start with what you mentioned about where do you want to put a sign on the no right turn on a red. I fail to this day to understand, where the traffic light is for the cars. That's where the sign should go. No pedestrian will hit their head on that. And we speak of Windsor and Almond Street, where the leading pedestrian interval, which goes 5 seconds ahead, and people are making a right-handed turn on a red. And thank you, Roddy, for actually going to fix that. But I don't think it's necessary to be looking where to post a sign as in other jurisdictions. It goes where the actual traffic lights go. That's just a comment on me. I'm quite displeased with this 14-year guideline. Guidelines bother me quite a lot, and it's kind of been mentioned here. You want to do 14 years, go ahead, but put in a strategic plan. So 3 years from now, you will have this. The next 3 years, you will have this, and the next 3 years, you will have that, because we all know a guideline is just that, and that leaves too much room for HRM to do something or do nothing at all. And I'm not nay-naying what has been put forth, but guidelines are just that. They're useless to me in a situation right now where I think the drivers of we all mentioned here and have experienced are out of control, right? The other thing I'd like to mention for this report, I don't really see anything on the actual educational part. We have a lot of international students with many different rules and regulations from different countries. So if you start at the university levels, and who will be in charge of that, I don't know, but this can be part of the strategic. You start, these are the rules of the road here. And to follow up with that, I'm a huge advocate for, even though I no longer drive, but I can attest just about everyone I'm in the car with, and even some taxi drivers, that if you go to get your driver's license renewed every 5 years, you must have a written test as well, because people don't remember the rules of the road who have been driving for 10 to 15 to 20. I bet you $100 right here, right now, Roddy, if we went out on the street and you asked 20 people in the car, do they know what the signs mean? 19 of them will say no. So road safety for vehicles and pedestrians will start there. This gives motor vehicles also a lot of money extra, if that's what they want, right? Every 5 years, you renew your license, you also have to do a written test. Not a driver's. I'd like to see a driver's, but a written test so that people remember. My next few points are going to be quick as well. We're looking at vehicular safety, mostly from what I'm understanding from these guidelines. But items such as roundabouts, which, help to prevent car-on-car rear-end collisions, so on and so forth, are no good for people who are blind or partially sighted. These roundabouts, when crossing as a pedestrian, are extremely dangerous. And I will remind this committee and yourself, as you should know, that there are about 52,000 plus growing people who are blind and partially sighted, and roundabouts are dangerous. How do you plan to address that? That's one of my questions. Second, the traffic regulations when construction happens, and there's people on here who know, who are probably listening online, that with all this development, sidewalks are being closed off, and we are being forced to do too many crossings as pedestrians, able-bodied or not, which is putting us at danger, because 3 sidewalks are being infringed upon for development, that you can't use them, so you have to cross 4 or 5 different sidewalks, take a longer route, go across at a dangerous intersection because of construction on the streets. That goes to road safety as well, because you're putting those pedestrians in the line of traffic, and people here in this province forget that a crosswalk is a crosswalk, whether marked or not, as long as you're not in the middle of the block. We should all know that, right? Except that the drivers do not. So we need to work with construction, development, because there's too many of us that are having to do too many dangerous crossings because the sidewalks are infringed. And the other thing that I've noticed, and this is ironic, and I didn't really see this as well, is that this province, in the 30 years I've been, and when I was a driver before I lost my sight, still fails to this day to put enough time for a driver to understand when they're about to exit, and this is speaking more so on the highways, that the exit is coming up. I've driven throughout different provinces of this Canada where you are at least 2 to 3 kilometers warned in advance that you're coming up to an exit. Not here. There are. I was in the car with a friend of mine from out of Nova Scotia who said, "Why is there an arrow and lane ends on the road itself when they're fading?" You and I, Roddy, have discussed about paintings on the roads and streets and the expenses, et cetera, but it's insufficient warning for drivers on the road for when lanes end, when lanes exit, and there's where you start with for road safety as well. For the rest of it, I will save for my second round because I know there's still people to come. So we need better signage. We need construction people to come on board, and we need education. And I would like to know why we're not doing a more strategic plan rather than just a 14-year guideline. And thanks for the work you do, by the way.
Thanks, Milena. So to try to wrap that all up in a nutshell, so the document itself is not the only document. We will be coming back annually with our annual reports, which will identify what we're planning to bring forward in the coming year, and then kind of assessing what we did the previous year. As I noted before, we've got that other report that should soon be coming to TSC and Council about the work plan for the top 10 intersections. So that lays out work to be done over 3 years. So that'll be a 3-year plan laid out for improvements for specific intersections. A lot of the items you mentioned, I get it, and I know folks are always like, "Oh yeah, you blame the province." Well, we're not blaming the province, but there are certain facilities that do belong to the province, and we don't have control over that. But that being said, we do have the province at the table as part of the road safety, as part of the steering committee, so they're there and they're aware of kind of what challenges we have, and we share information with them all the time. I know their manager of traffic engineering and road safety has just recently retired, so he's now gone, and we'll have a new player at the table that'll take over or pick up the torch for the provincial side of it, and we'll continue to work with those folks. And we've got myself and my team. We've got a lot of good relationships that we've built over the years with the Provincial Department of Transportation and Public Works. So I mean, we're always trying to get a bug in their ear, and a lot of us have been working with them long enough that we can even give them a good-hearted ribbing to say, what are you doing over there? I can't believe you're doing that. That's crazy, and you need to step up with this and step up with that. So we try to press as much as we can. Just I want to circle way back with your first part there, Milena, about the signage on the poles. And I know it's easy enough to say just put it where the signal is, but unfortunately in the urban area, there's a lot of stuff on those poles. So we have the vehicle signal head, then below that is the pedestrian signal head, which takes up space. So then if we then put the sign below the pedestrian signal head, now we've got the sign in that area where somebody who has to get close to the pole to push the button could potentially strike their head on it. So that's why we have to look at probably putting in a couple of actual separate signposts here and there in order to get the signs in a spot where somebody's not going to walk into them, but it's plainly visible to the driver to outline that there's been a restriction there. So I know in many instances it sounds simple, just put it on the pole, but sometimes there's already equipment on the pole that really doesn't allow us to put it there.
Okay, and what how much of a hand do you have? What's I think people are all failing to understand that during development and sidewalks being closed off and we pedestrians in particular being forced to cross.
Yeah, so we're actually actively working with our development group on that. So within my overall department, we have our group, the right-of-way services group, and they look after encroachments and construction permitting and stuff like that. Now, the development group can also issue those if it's strictly related to development, but there are we do have construction mitigation guidelines. I know our group has been working closely with the construction associations and whatnot to try to get approval for some smaller signs for those encroachments and detours so that they can be placed without the issues of people potentially walking into them or striking their head on them, so that they still convey the message, but they're not as obtrusive or intrusive. I know we, from our perspective within my group, whenever we get plans from development for their construction activities, one of the first things we look at is there, if they're asking to close the sidewalk for an encroachment, we always push back, is that absolutely necessary? And if it is, we require them to build in a protected sidewalk right along there to avoid a crossing. So in a lot of times we're either giving up on-street parking, or we're narrowing up lanes in order to get a barriered, separated sidewalk. If for some reason, based on the location, they absolutely can't do that, then yes, we will put in a crossing. For the majority of times, we're actually putting in marked crossings, and so that you've got that where it could be mid-block, you'll get the official marked crosswalk to provide that legal right-of-way. And in some instances, we've actually even required the developer, and I know, Milena, I know where you'll go with this, but we're starting to move towards getting the audible buttons for the RFBs, but for some of these temporary crosswalks, we've actually been requiring developers to pay for RFBs to put them in, and we're starting to move towards getting the ability to have audible buttons with those smaller units. So we are aware of this. We know it's an issue, and it's an issue for everyone. I know folks who are blind or visually impaired, it can be a bigger issue. Yeah. But there's plenty of pedestrians who are, fully sighted and very, able-bodied. But still, if you're going to force them out into traffic, it's not an ideal situation. So we do work as best we can to try to ensure that the pedestrian access is maintained around developments and construction.
Yeah. I mean, that's great, and the RFBs, I'm aware of all that. I think that's a great move for the city that we're putting them in. That so you don't have to go to a lighted intersection, and I'm like a pit bull in City Hall. We'll be in June again with certain councillors. What is happening with development and closing of sidewalks? My point is that to have a 3, 4, 5 year project and 3 sidewalks closed off, and I just led a Jane's Walk on May the 5th with over 41 people, including 2 city councillors and HRM staff and people from districts 8 and 9, and every single 100% of these people said it's not just about the blind and partially sighted, it's about all of them, parents with strollers and everyone having to circumnavigate and go into dangerous intersections because development has taken up 3 sidewalks with no temporary sidewalks to begin with, and there's at least 3 projects I won't say them here because I'm saving them for city council for June, that are under right now, putting people into dangerous positions, having to cross over and over and over. And that goes to say for road safety, because drivers don't care. Mm-hmm. So everything else you've said, I see the city moving in good positions, but this development, construction, closing of sidewalks, it all interacts with the driver, the pedestrian, and everything else in between. So if you've got that button and that hand in there, please keep pushing, because that's what I heard you just say.
Oh, absolutely, Milena. We are. No, we certainly are. The whole issue around construction encroachments is it's a big issue, and it's ongoing, and we're we've even had instances where contractors have been told, here's your, because we've gone through and got an approved construction mitigation plan And then lo and behold, a month later, once they get set up, somebody comes back and says, well, they've got this closed down and that closed down, and this isn't here and that isn't there. And then we've got to send inspectors out after to say, well, no, I'm sorry, I know you're underway. You got to pull that out, you got to fix it, you got to change it. So we do the best we can. We are trying with that, because we do certainly understand the impact that the construction encroachments have.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Roddy, and Milena. Maybe you can come back if you have further questions on a second round.
Yes.
I guess Brittany McLean and Paul Young did not join us. Is that correct? So
I'm here now, Hugh. Brittany.
Oh, okay.
I joined. Sorry, do you want to drive a minute now, or?
Did you hear the presentation?
I did not, but I do have a question, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I did go through this slide. Apologies for being late. There was an accident on the bridge and I took the bus. I should have biked. Everyone on a bike was flying by me and got home on time. But I just have a question about the near miss data. Roddy, it sounds like there's like a visual camera that's tracking that data. And just because I think near miss data is just as important as, actual collision data. I'm just curious, like, is there any other way from public inquiry or anything that you track near miss data? Like, do people call 311 and then HRM tracks it that way? I know I'm from Cycling Nova Scotia, and we have a form on our website where we do get people submitting near miss instances and give us the feedback on it. But I'm just curious to see if HRM is doing anything besides just doing the visual data on certain crossings. Thanks.
So I'm not. I would have to check with those on my team. I know we often do get service requests in through CityWorks. It'll somebody will submit a complaint or a concern about an intersection, and sometimes it's just that I was here and I was almost hit. I'm not 100% sure whether staff are taking that and putting it into like a bin, so to speak, to help inform where we're going to do our analytics. But if not, I can certainly find out if that's an avenue that we can explore, because it would actually help us focus work, right? I mean, we may be over at one intersection doing our thing, and lo and behold, there's a number of incidences that residents are experiencing at another intersection that we just don't know about. So if that's something that we could perhaps take advantage of, I can certainly look into that.
Yeah, and I'd be curious. I mean, we collect the data through us as well. So if there is some kind of format where even I could call 311 and report, like, the instances that come in through our website, that would be good to know too. So if there is something that does exist, if you could contact through ATAC or something, I'd love to know, and then I can kind of forward the information that we get at Cycling Nova Scotia on to you.
Great.
Okay. Councillor Cottle, did you want to come in now, or shall we go through a second round first?
No, I'll come in now if I can.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
So I just want to say this is, some great points have been made. Melania, like your points around construction, that does play into road safety, or, really like, needing to understand the strategy and like, what are we going to tackle when, some of your other points around signage. I think, anyway, great points. I just want to take a moment to, acknowledge, I think it's all easy in our advocacy roles to kind of put our caps on and look for the holes in something. But on a positive front, here we have a new road safety strategy. I think it is a step forward. It is, a bit of a change in direction from where we were before. And it's actually something tangible that we have to work with. I hear the frustration around, Douglas, you keep hearing it's the province, it's the municipality, you're tired of hearing it. You might be tired of hearing it, but it's the reality. We cannot go and implement photo radar without the permission from the province. And I was just at a meeting in Spryfield last night having this exact same conversation, and the residents asked, well, what can we do? And I'm like, well, what, perhaps we need to make this more of a provincial election issue. Like, call your MLAs, mount a campaign. Like, we have been waiting for a long time for this to come through. Or waiting for the changes to the Motor Vehicle Act. And I think people have been waiting for a long time, but so much of what we do hinges on that, just given the reality of, you know, the government structures within which we have to work within. So, you know, when I asked for this report to come to ATAC before being approved, it was because I know you all on this committee have your, you know, your kind of finger on the pulse of really, you know, what's happening around road safety, and having some constructive input or feedback or questions about how we're going to work with this strategy moving forward, I thought was, you know, a very important thing to do. You know, as Roddy said, this will be coming back to council on an annual basis, and you know, there's opportunities there to kind of, you know, look at what's being done and begin to you know, again, if there's like some constructive input or something that needs to be changed, or you know, not moving the mark on something, like, well, let's have a discussion and come up with a constructive action perhaps to move that forward. You know, those are things that can happen, and they can happen because we have a road safety strategy to reference and to work with. So I just want to make sure everyone just takes a step back and kind of keeps that bigger picture in mind about, you know, where we are, what our role is, and you know, what as a municipality we can and we cannot do. You know, let's focus on what we can do. I think Roddy was talking about that. What on the areas that, you know, we can't affect, well, this is not an advocacy lobbying group, you know, individually and with the organizations that you work with, you know, perhaps, you know, some effort needs to be put into the other order of government, if there's changes that you want to see there and the things that are their responsibility. But I don't want to miss the opportunity that we have here in front of us to be able to get down to these like kind of brass tack conversations about particular things. And just to remind everyone, the reason we can do that is because of the work that has been done and the fact that we even have an active transportation advisory committee and invite people to the table to have these important dialogues. So I just want to thank the staff, and I want to thank the members of this committee, because I think, you know, we're all in this for the same reason, and it's to make, you know, Halifax a better, safer place for everyone. So I'm going to just leave my comments there for now, and hear what else people have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so I know several speakers were interested in a second round. Douglas and Milena, and I think possibly Peter Zimmer all mentioned that. So why don't we go with those three for now? Douglas, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll give a quick follow-up. I feel like Milena actually summarized a few things that I was going to say really well. When it comes down to this plan, what I see right now doesn't have a lot of direction to me. Like, yes, I see the big picture, but I don't really see specifics or even just like a very broad picture of what we're actually going to do to get there other than what the priorities are, which the priorities and KPIs are fine for the most part, but again, I feel like there needs to be a little bit more information provided as to what actually needs to happen to make this a success. And yeah, I feel like that summarizes it. And again, just to echo some of Milena's comments, yes, I understand that we can put up signs. Yes, I understand that's pricey, but at the end of the day, when it comes to lowering speed limits, my opinion on this has changed a lot in the last few months, based on an example I've seen along the Bedford Highway. Speed limits were reduced, new signs are up, but nothing's really changed that much. We need to either design or policy in place to kind of make that safety happen. to actually reduce speeds. So I'll leave my comments there, but I look forward to seeing, as Roddy alluded to, we will be seeing more of this in the future and kind of the year by year details of what's actually going to be in place. I look forward to hearing more about those.
Okay, thank you, Douglas. Milena, did you have further comments?
Yeah, just a quick one. I just want to address Councillor Cuddle, and thank you for your comments and a reminder to the committee what City Council and HRM staff can do. I still stand by, and I fully understand what the province does is different from municipality. However, you've got a committee here who's giving suggestions and ideas, and because you guys are closer, yes, we can launch all these campaigns and write to the MLA, so on and so forth, and have our voices heard. But we voted you in, and you hire staff, and so you're closer to, I was going to say not a pleasant word about the government of the day, but I'll refrain from doing that. That you can put a lot of these solutions forward or commentaries forward as well if you believe in them, and I believe that City Council does, because nobody wants to see any more injuries on the road, whether car on car or pedestrian or cyclist or any of the sort. So I appreciate your comments, Councillor Cuddle. However, I still feel you're a lot closer to the gods of the province than we, the citizens, are until it comes to provincial elections, which will be something else to be heard. And for Roddy, you mentioned in 3 years there will be certain, if I understood you correctly, correct me with your words, dangerous intersections. I'm wondering, for example, Kennard and Windsor, nobody knows what the heck to do there. Nobody knows what to do at Kennard and Windsor. That whole intersection is a complete mess. As a pedestrian, it's absurd as well. Bears Road and Connaught, as far as pedestrians go, and they're long intersections to cross, no audible pedestrian signals, and I've been going through all directions to see what is happening. Nobody said anything about that. That is completely unsafe, and too many close calls happening there with pedestrians and vehicles when it comes to road and safety. So just for those two examples, Bears, Connaught, and Windsor and Kennard, and I'm sure there's many others, but if you have a list, if you're permitted to reveal, where are they in line with the 3-year?
Bears or Kennard at Windsor, we call it Windsor Chebucto Kennard. It's the one we refer as WCC is how we refer to that one. We are looking at some minor changes there coming up in conjunction with the bikeway project, extension of the bikeway. So we're looking at seeing what we can do there, some quick fixes and also some more longer term treatments there. So we are looking at that one. Bears at Connaught. I know there was a lot of work done there with the Bears Road Transit project, and phase 2 of the Bears Road project should be coming on soon. That would likely finish off the signal work needed there. So I'm actually surprised that there's no audibles there with the upgrade. So I would have to go back and look into that.
Zero, nothing. And if you try and cross that sighted or not sighted, it's that's a heck of a lot of vehicular lanes to cross.
Yeah, and I agree. That it is a wide intersection. It is very wide. But it may be that the remainder, and again, Milena, forgive me, I have to check into this one, because like I said, I know it was partially done with phase 1 of Bears Road, and it's supposed to be finished off with phase 2. So it could be that the rest of it will get done with phase 2. So we are still working on that one. And you mentioned about like the 3 years. So that's a 3-year capital plan that we're looking to get put together. So we'll basically have our work planned out for the next 3 years for our intersection work. That's not to say that will be the only stuff that gets done, because depending on how the cost estimates come in, we may be able to add some other things. But we have those 10 intersections that are planned. those top 10. And then I believe there's another handful, 4 or 5 more on top of that came out of the previous protected turns report. So there's between somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 intersections that we're intending to do some work on in the next 3 years.
Okay, thank
and
you.
there's a
Lottie.
list to be found. Sorry, Hugh, there's a list to be found somewhere. Perhaps I just missed that.
The
Like,
list would have been, it would have been identified in that the 2023 annual report. It would have been in there. And it's
okay.
also going to be coming back to council very soon. I think we're scheduled for the June TSC meeting. So it'll go to TSC and the list will be there with the plan as well.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. End of thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Peter Zimmer, did you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I've got tons, but I'm gonna hold off.
Well, I'll give you 3 minutes.
No.
Yeah.
So I have to leave shortly, and
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt Peter just very quick because apparently someone on my team is watching this, and I got a little Teams message that just says 2025 for Bears Cannot.
Okay.
So there you go, Milena.
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
I'm just going to pass on comments right now. There's been some very good stuff. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, Milena.
Okay, thank you. And anyone else with some final thoughts or not?
Yeah, I'll just chime in there for a second, Peter. It's Patty. I mean, not Peter. Sorry, Hugh. Yeah. So I just want to point out that HRM has asked the province. We have written letters requesting it through our formal channels and intergovernmental affairs. When there was a change in government, it was an opportunity to review our list of requests that we had outstanding. And our new CAO has been in touch with the provincial government as well. But at some point, it's we're not any more closer to the provincial gods than the voter is at the end of the day. And so I appreciate your comments, Melania, but but you know what? It really I think HRM has been doing our part, but it needs, people need to say to the provincial government that this does matter. And I know there's a lot of people out there who really care about this. I talk to those people every day, ordinary citizens, but they don't know where to properly direct their comments or their frustration or their advocacy. And so I'm saying that, we need everybody kind of pushing in the same direction. It's not to let HRM or councillors off the hook. I'm just putting that out there, that these requests have been made.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So I think at this point we should move on. I'd like to thank Roddy McIntyre for the presentation, and I hope some at least of the feedback from this session gets before the Transportation Standing Committee and beyond that to Council. So thank you. We're going to move on to item 9.1.2, the active transportation update from staff. Is David McIsaac with us yet?
I'm here.
Hello, David.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, we're ready. Yeah.
All right. So just first want to give folks an update on some public engagement that is coming up soon, some that's scheduled and some that will be coming up in the summer. So on May 29th, there will be some public engagement, I think an open house looking at some AAA bikeway connections in Dartmouth. It's kind of looking at Slater Street and then connections down to the bridge terminal for transit, and some questions about how we connect from Slater down into the Canal Greenway and then also over to the Dartmouth North End Bikeway project. So there'll be materials on Shape Your City and stuff like that if you don't if you can't make it out, so look out for that one. There will be, we don't have them scheduled yet, but we might still be doing them in the summer. Sometimes you say you shouldn't be doing engagement in the summer, but we've had reasonably good participation in the past. So I think we will. You may see some engagement in the summer on the Alderney Drive functional plan, which looks at one, making the connection between the Dartmouth Harbourfront active transportation facility and the Wise Street bike lanes, and also looks at transit priority measures through that corridor as well. They're hoping to get out to the public in late June or July on the Graham's Grove AT Connections project, which is looking at how we make better and safer AT connections across Highway 111, really, between both sides of Highway 111, the Great Divider of Dartmouth. One thing we're doing that we haven't done before, and we're not going to do big advertisements on this, but there are some places that are kind of on the border for new sidewalks, places where we're not sure if, they should have sidewalks, but where we're not quite sure if they're places which, with our limited dollars, we should be building sidewalks. So we're doing a bit of like resident neighborhood engagement on those. Astral Drive is one, and Tremont is the other in kind of the, I guess it's Bedford, off of the Bedford Highway. So a lot of what our group does, and I don't talk about this a lot, but when I asked the group this morning, what are you doing and what to tell you about, a lot of them came back with like, we're supporting other processes. So if you keep track of the news, you know, there's these big new growth nodes, you know, where the Big Dartmouth Mall is, Exhibition Park, Strawberry Hill, the Bedford Common, like they're everywhere. It's unbelievable. They're all 5,000 units, like crazy big, you know, developments. So we always get involved to those design charrettes and you know, so we spend a bit of time, quite a bit of time contributing to other people's kind of projects. And if any of you kind of see those coming along and have any, you know, are curious about like, what is AT, like what is the connection, or have any thoughts on some of those, happy to discuss those with you. Because there's a lot of big new developments, very, you know, at the early stages of the planning process, but, you know, really city building and city shaping and transportation network, you know, impacting projects. I guess some council reports that you'll see in the next month or two. One is looking at the potential for a new active transportation crossing at Highway 101 in Lower Sackville at exit 2. We're going to bring reports to council this summer on the Rural Active Transportation Program. So our next steps or not in terms of sidewalks and multi-use pathways in rural community centers. And I think in June, we will kind of complete our council seeking council direction for shared micromobility. So we have, last year council approved kind of rules of the road for e-scooters in the city. And the second part of that bylaw is going to kind of dictate the operation of private shared micromobility service providers. I'm not sure if you can hear the roosters outside my window here, but they're if you could, they would add an interesting dimension to this meeting.
We can hear them, Dave.
One thing I'd like to you, Milena, like Roddy referenced some, like we have an interesting project right now to see how we can make tactical kind of inter improvements to the Windsor Street bike lane, which is a painted bike lane right now that stops, in advance of the Windsor-Chebucto intersection, which is not good. You don't give up at the intersection. So we're not giving up. And I think we've got some interesting options. And one thing about them is they shorten the pedestrian crossing distances quite a bit. And so looking to hopefully get those approved and implemented next year. And just on our capital grant program, or our grant program in general, we've got just signing agreements with community groups that have responsibility to operate and maintain multi-use pathways. So that's happening. We just looked at this spring's submissions for the education and grant program. And if groups haven't heard yet, they should hear very soon. Lots of good projects, and hopefully some good projects implemented by nonprofit groups. So just one final kind of comment. Our group is changing quite a bit. We are hiring new people, and I'll hopefully be introducing some of those people at the next meeting. One thing to note is that a long-term staff member, Dawn Neal, who has been employed by HRM since Hugh knows her, was involved in basically a lot of her work over the years was supporting the work of community groups to get facilities built. So kind of supporting the planning, helping find the funding for it. We did a little calculation, and she's responsible, or she was the lead staff person for over 100 kilometers, or just about 100 kilometers of multi-use pathway across the municipality. So the whole Eastern Shore system, Salt Marsh Trail, Atlantic View, Gatesbrook Greenway, Penhorn Greenway, Dartmouth Harbourfront Greenway, all those places. So she made a huge contribution to active transportation at HRM, and she is no longer working at HRM. She's decided to spend time with family. And it's been a big change for us, but I just wanted to give her a shout out and acknowledge her substantial contributions to HRM. Working in African Nova Scotian community, she really kind of moved us along in terms of like working with groups in Lucasville and North Preston and stuff like that. So a huge contribution. We miss her, and definitely appreciate everything that she contributed to the work that we all support. And that is a partial update of everything going on, but I guess at least some of the highlights.
Okay, thank you, David. Yes, Dawn Neal also worked with the Portland Estates and Hills group on the Portland Lakes Trail, and that goes back a long way. So, and I'm sure Holly Woodall also recalls how far back Dawn Neal goes with her group. Okay, so let's just go through the speaking list. Peter Zimmer has left. Milena, do you have comments? Questions?
Yes, just quick question. Hi, David. Love your roosters. Quite the racket they're making back there. So can you tell me, just repeat what you said about the e-scooters? Because in 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, I've run into 4 of them smack dab in the middle of sidewalks, including one this morning at Sobeys on Windsor that was left all the way across. You couldn't get into Sobeys unless you went off into the parking lot.
So, I mean, there are still, from what I know, 2 private e-scooter companies, e-scooter rental companies operating in HRM. They are allowed to operate because there's nothing that really says they can't. So, most other businesses, if you want to operate a chip truck in the right of way or sell your handicrafts or whatever, you need a permit or a license. So what that Part B that I'm talking about will kind of like obligate businesses that are doing this to like be selected by HRM to operate. So in the meantime, we continue to have kind of this unregulated set of operators. What we do have that's better than last year is at least we've got rules of the road on certain criteria or rules that are in Part A of that bylaw that HRM can enforce. So that's where we're at right now. I guess, like, you know, calling 311, calling the operators are probably the best approaches if people want to encourage enforcement. I would say getting in touch directly with those companies. You know, I do my best to like communicate to them what I'm hearing. I think, you know, they try to take seriously. They kind of realize that they have an obligation to kind of try to keep their devices, you know, out of the right of way and out of the path of travel. But it's that's the situation right now.
Yeah. Okay. And last but not least, it's a small issue, and perhaps you and I can go offline one day and with Ann Sherwood as well. The Almond Street bike lane, particularly the infrastructure that will happen at Roby and Almond, which is going to be a complete mess for those of us who are blind or partially sighted. No consistency whatsoever at the intersection because of the bike lanes. I'm not opposing the bike lane, happy what's happening in front of CNIB, completely and utterly displeased and agitated at Roby and Almond, where it's going to mess every single person traveling to CNIB who's blind or partially sighted up. And our mobility instructors have spoken to HRM staff, and yet this continues. So perhaps you and I can set up a time.
Yeah, so it should, you know, me, but mostly with Ann Sherwood staff, with the design engineers. I think happy to help facilitate that. And if there's something that can be adjusted better now than when the concrete's poured.
Great. Thank you. End of thought.
Okay.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I see Holly Woodill has her hand up.
Yes, my canaries finally stopped singing, so that must make you feel happy, David. Yes, Don Neal was very instrumental with trails, and we appreciate her very much. Having said that, I would like to leave Roddy with a positive comment to go home with. The crossing lights that the pedestrians can use that flash at the cars oncoming, the yellow flashing lights, they put them in for several trails instances in places, and they work wonderfully, and we really love them. And as a driver as well as a pedestrian, I really appreciate them. That I was using them on Spring Garden Road the other day, where a farther up the street, a bicyclist hit me while I was on the sidewalk. So I wasn't happy about that. He knocked me over, but I wasn't seriously hurt. So, but a positive comment for you, Roddy, and we appreciate Don very much. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Douglas Wetmore, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just a few quick comments. Really excited to hear anything is coming to Windsor Street. I recently moved again, and Windsor Street, including the WCC, is now part of my regular commute home. And I like to tell everyone, for reference again, I drive a kick scooter, non-electric. And when people ask me if I can do tricks on it, I tell them I can get through the WCC on road without getting hit by a car. So really excited to see anything happening there. Similarly, regarding tactical bike lanes, I'm wondering if the tactical bike lanes infrastructure that was put on Bell Road last summer is going to be coming back anytime soon, now that I don't want to jinx it, but I think we're in the clear for no more snow for the season.
Yeah, so we're doing a bit of work the plan is to reinstall the bollards on Bell Road. We'll probably make a few little adjustments. I guess the complicating factor is I know it's not the putting bollards into the asphalt and taking them out. The anchors are pretty kind of vulnerable there, just, given the snow plows and stuff like that. So, we had a couple of good years on Wise Road where we could just use the exact same anchors. They weren't sliced off during the winter, but this year they were. So, so it's just a little bit more work, and I have to do some procurement stuff. But the plan is to reinstall the Bell Road kind of tactical bike lane with a few modifications on some of the bollard placements. Especially, there's a couple of narrow sections that we might fiddle with a bit. But the design engineer is looking at that right now. But I think it's painted. I think the folks responsible for street painting were good to. Or bike lane painting, all the painting, did that one relatively early so that, when we're ready for the bollards, the paint's already there.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Miles McCormick, any comments or questions?
Yeah. Thanks, David. I was very appreciative of hearing that there will be neighborhood consultation on Tremont. With regards to a badly needed sidewalk in that area. So I guess from what I understood is you're going to engage the people in that area just individually?
Yeah, so so the idea is neighborhood engagement. So we're kind of interested. There are a few different options. We've talked to the school and continue to talk to the school, and to the school, really the school. And it's basically for folks, it's a school. I'm pretty sure it's a French immersion school. It's on like a hill in the middle of a neighborhood, and there's a lot of kids get dropped off there in cars, and it is a
zoo.
It's a bit of a zoo. It's like the school has really, they've got systems in place, but and it's also a really difficult and expensive place to put sidewalk. So we're, if sidewalk were to go there, it would, maybe the street needs to get a little bit narrower, or we'll have to build some retaining walls, or maybe some mature trees that are, on HRM land, but really look like they're on the front lawns, might have to go. So I think our goal is just really to sort of, see what people in the neighborhood are thinking, and just maybe kind of test their tolerance a little bit for some of the options that could happen there. And one of the questions we've had is just like, if anything could really make a difference, or what segments would be the most strategic to invest in. So we're trying to advance it. And also, as on the very top of the hill, I don't know how many units went up there, but there's, a lot of new families, and you watch them every morning, and they're walking down right in the middle of the street, to get to school. And anyway, we're giving it a good look. And part of that look is just listening to the people who live around there.
Yeah, thank you, because it'll also help trying to move forward with regards to safe schools. So that's a major issue in that community there. So I was really pleased to hear that, and keep up the great work, especially on that effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miles. Brittany McLean, any comments, questions?
One quick question, although I do have a comment on Tremont. So when I worked at HRM, I worked on a planning application for some townhomes right in off of Tremont. And there was a lot of public feedback, and I did a couple site visits and watched at the school hour what's happening. And it is like quite a mess going up and down there. There's kids like dodging in and out of vehicles that are trying to peel off after dropping their kids off. There is like public record on that. So if you go through like the planning cases from HRM, that would have been, I don't know, 3 years ago or something. There's like some public feedback that was included in that staff report. So I don't know if that has any interest, if you're interested in looking at that. But there were a lot of public comments about needing a sidewalk and just like the traffic issue during peak hours for school in that area. And then my only other question was, so you mentioned Graham's Grove. Do you mean like by Braemar Superstore? Because I know HRM had done engagement on that. Maybe was it last summer? And so we gave feedback at that point. You're doing more engagement. Can you explain a little bit more about what's happening there?
So I think the first round of engagement was to kind of get higher level comments and kind of information from stakeholders in the public that would then kind of feed into the development of specific concepts. And so this is to sort of bring, you know, some specific options to the public. And so it's looking at you know, if you're thinking about the Micmac Mall, Micmac Boulevard, there's a gap between the crossing that goes under the highway there and it becomes a sidewalk for about, you know, 200 meters. So there, looking at crossing Braemar, just the connection between the multi-use pathway on Prince Albert and the Waverly Road bike lanes, thinking about crossing at Main and what happens when you get over to the kind of the plaza side. You know, you're in Tim Hortons land, and it's really difficult to navigate. So there's some good options there. And then kind of the limit of it is that sort of existing very old or older pedestrian bridge over the 111 at basically between Portland Street and Main Street, which it's not accessible. So we kind of just seen like, do we keep it? Do we improve it? Do we replace it? And see what people think about that.
Okay, great. And so is that in-person engagement, or are you doing online surveys for that, or?
Online surveys, some pop-ups, some actual tours, like you can sign up and walk around and stuff like that, and one open house.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. Annika Ropel.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything major. You might have mentioned this, but when does the RFP close for the bike share e-scooter applications?
Probably about 3 weeks after it goes out, and it hasn't gone out yet, but it's pretty close to going out. So, you know, the likely scenario is that we would kind of aim to get at least a partial implementation this year, but it really depends on who is successful.
Right. Yeah, no, no.
Okay.
Nothing else.
Okay, thank you. I think everyone's spoken except for me. Just a quick comment, David. You mentioned about the growth node planning for places like Micmac Mall and Penhorn and Strawberry Hill and so on. And I think it's very important that the active transportation staff and ideally also this committee have a chance to have an input at an early stage in the planning for all of these things. And I think it was very useful, for example, that we were able to do that with Penhorn Mall. But I'd like to see all of those projects, those growth node projects, coming to this committee. Hopefully that will happen. Okay. You don't need to respond unless you're going to say, yes, it will happen.
No, I'm not sure how, I'm just trying. I can't say that, but I can communicate that internally and see if folks want to include that as part of the processes.
Okay. Well, I think everyone's spoken who wishes to speak, unless I don't see any hands up. So thank you very much, David, for your update. There are no added items, so all that remains is that I tell you the date of the next meeting, which is June 20th. and then we need a motion to adjourn. Oh, just a minute. There was a hand up there.
Yeah, that was me. I did want to, I don't like, it wasn't fully connected. Well, I mean, it was connected to one of the things. I just want to let people know that the EAC is working on an amendment request to the province around changing the jurisdiction of speed limit reduction. So there is some effort going on right now. Currently it's internal requests. If those aren't those don't get any traction, we'll be moving to a different phase that will be a bit more of a rabble rouser. But I do want to let people know that there is work being done in the background, because it really does feel like that's where the change needs to happen. So yeah, the specific request is giving municipal traffic authorities the ability to set speed limits below 50 kilometers an hour.
Okay, thank you, Annika. That's appreciated. So back to the agenda. Motion to adjourn, please.
I will so move.
Okay, I think that was Holly. We don't need a seconder and we don't need a vote on that. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending.
When is the next meeting? And I know sometimes we take time off in the summer. I was just wondering if you could remind me what.
Yeah, I just said June 20th.
Okay.
June 20th. Okay. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone, and we will see you then, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Good evening.